having a clean gym, like this should be the automatics that you really shouldn't get credit for. And people take pride in these things. That's great. I'm glad you're taking care of your facility.
Right.
But this should be 101. Like health and hygiene in your facility should be just something that everybody does.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks, where we talk about the entrepreneur mindset, everything from Main Street brick and mortar business to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Today's episode is brought to you by MyGo where you can build funnels and website all from one location. Easy to use, drag and drop builder. Build your first funnel today. Fully customized checkout experience, 14-day free trial, no credit card needed. Welcome back, everybody, to Clicks and Bricks. My name is Ken. Today we have Mike Ricchio from MAR Health and Performance with us. But before we bring him on, if you would like to join my text line community, 314-370-2871. If you send me a text message to that number, you can just say hi, or you can ask me any question about technology or business, and I will give you an unbiased, absolutely free answer. I'll never try to sell you anything on that line. I'll just send you tips and tricks, business advice, and every now and then some crypto or NFT news. How are you doing today, Mike?
Great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us on the show today. Super excited to learn about you and your business. Can we just jump right in? Can you tell the audience a little bit about your business and what is it that you do?
Yeah, happy to. So I am just outside of Chicago, Illinois, and Downers Grove is the name of the suburb. And I own a brick and mortar 6,000 square foot fitness facility where we focus on private and semi-private training. We also focus heavily on lifestyle and health and the outside the brick and mortar habits that people tend to miss out on when it comes to focusing on their health and their goals. So we consider ourselves an all-encompassing fitness facility. I've been open since October 7th of 2019, which right now all of us can do the math on, a couple months right before the pandemic hit. So it has been an interesting first 2 years of being a business owner. And on top of the brick and mortar, we are also about to launch a virtual program where much of fitness pivoted into the exercise side of virtual. I want to go the other direction and focus more on habit change and the science of habit change and getting people to do the day-to-day things that really will make a difference.
Right. So when you go down that habit change path, obviously that's also when somebody decides that they're going to actually start using the gym or start making that transition, right? So that's a great place to start. Do you think that's kind of almost like a lead generation for your other piece of business and maybe add a fitness piece on that virtual as well later down the road?
Yes, 100%. And the way we're going to do it is the virtual will be a revenue stream in and of itself, an offering. But I want it to be complementary to my in-person members who are paying a different fee for training. So I want to make sure it's available for them to supplement what they are doing, which, yes, I do think in turn is going to help us generate more people in the door.
Absolutely. So just expanding the offering, making it mindset change, habit change, those kinds of things. Yes. It buckles on. It's a value add to your existing customers, but it's also a way to get in the pipeline for new, maybe virtual customers down the road, but at least in your local area, also a lead generation for your brick and mortar facility.
Exactly right. And we tried the exercise-based virtual model, and everybody was doing it. It was very saturated.
It went way saturated in the pandemic.
And there's big players in there who are doing it really well. The right. Pelotons of the world, and now the Tunnel and the Mirror. And there's just so many big players that, it's a great offering, but it was something that we realized quickly we couldn't compete with.
Yeah, and on that, when the market gets saturated so fast like that, the online fitness world became a gold rush on the first day of pandemic. It ended pretty quickly because there were some very obvious winners in that world. They already had a foothold in that, right?
Yes.
Peloton already had a foothold in virtual class or virtual instruction at least, right? They had screens on their machines and all that stuff. So, and then you had 100,000 new startups happen for virtual training, and I had one, right? There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it was just so fast that the differentiator was cost, and if you're playing that game, just get out because you already lost.
Yeah, cost and time. These big players have a system where they have hundreds, thousands of trainers who are constantly giving them fresh content. Where in a brick and mortar, where now I have 6 employees, but at the time I had 2, for us to create enough content became really an unattainable avenue. We just couldn't keep up to create enough content to ever be able to touch the real market.
Right. So you've had Mar Health and Performance for just about 2 years now. Were you a business owner before you went on this journey, or can you tell us a little bit about the transition from where you were before Mar and making that transition and any challenges that you had or any stories that you think are unique to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a business standpoint, I've been in the corporate side of fitness for a while. I worked with, the bigger names. Equinox is a well-known name. They're a luxury gym, and I loved working for them, and I learned a ton. So I went down the management route for a long time with companies and got to learn the ins and outs of the bigger boxes. And then while setting this up, I did go into a private business where I was keeping up with clientele, where I rented space out of an individual facility. And I doubled up on doing that just to keep income coming in while I built this business. From a unique standpoint, and one of the reasons I started this company, Mar is named after Mario, my father, who passed away of a brain tumor in 2013. So, he was very into fitness. He's the reason I got into fitness. He supported me both financially and hypothetically by getting into a degree that he really didn't understand. I started as a business major, and believe it or not, now that I'm a business owner, this sounds actually kind of contradictory, but it wasn't for me. As a major, it wasn't for me. So I ended up going down the fitness route for education. And, fast forward 8 years, there was always something that I wanted to do to honor what he did. And this is where the idea really came from.
Fantastic. So following your father's footsteps is really where you wanted to be. And fitness was your GM and his GM, right? So that makes sense. But he was more on the business side. You were on the more fitness side. But owning a fitness business, if you love fitness as a whole, the business side, in my mind, comes pretty easy if you're coming from a genuine place.
Yes. Yeah, and actually to prove that point even more, at some point I did try. I realized that I was good at sales in terms of at least fitness. I was good at talking to people, and I was good at convincing people that I was the right fit for them. And for that reason, I tried different types of sales. I thought, well, if I can make money here, I can make way more money in a different type of industry. And I quickly realized how untrue that was. That I was so successful in what I was doing because of how much I believed in my product, believed in myself, and was passionate about it. Trying things like credit card processing, of course, a great industry, but it wasn't me.
Pretty hard to get excited about 2.5% of transactions at $10 a pop, right?
Yeah, especially when you come off of these conversations where people get to talk to me about how we just lost 100 pounds for the first time, or my athletes go and they score more points than they've ever scored, and I get these dopamine rush wins in my industry. So it wasn't the same, and it was nowhere near comparable.
Absolutely. And I have two passions in my life, and it's small business and boxing. And in both of those things, right? If I'm a boxing coach and I do a lot of small business work or medium-sized, $1 million to $20 million businesses, right? That's where I like to play. And just because over 100 employees gets weird for me. My sociology is not that great, right? So I think it's really great to stay in your wheelhouse doing the things that you love to do. And in both of those industries, for me, in my boxing, I get the kids that really do transformations. They start doing better in school. They learn discipline, all those things. And in business, again, I get a business owner. They start to learn discipline. They know how to build ads. They know how to run their business. They know how to build their website better. They know how to convert those transactions. Both of those things I would do for no money, right? I would absolutely, because you get such a thrill from them telling you about their experience and what you help them do. And you're changing lives, and anytime that you can help somebody change their lives in a positive way, it is wildly gratifying, right? Yes. It is so good. It feels so good. You're like, okay, I don't even care about the money. And if you're doing the kind of work that you love to do, the day that you stop caring about the money is the day that it will come in without any questions. It will always be there to do what you love to do. It will find its way to you, I promise. So
yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Alrighty, so obviously you went through the pandemic. Everybody went through the pandemic together, right? It was tough. Lots of gyms closed. Lots of gyms closed forever, right? But you still got your doors open, still running. From my understanding, most gyms are doing better post-COVID least than they were pre-COVID. But I know Chicago area was pretty strict for a while, right? You had more burdensome restrictions than others. How did you deal with that, knowing like every day, shoot, my business could never open again? What's going to happen, right? It was a trying time. How did you deal with those emotions and tips and tricks on how to overcome them and stay in a positive mindset to run your business?
From a mindset standpoint, it was practicing what I preach. We talk a lot with our members that, when one aspect of health is down and stress is one of those aspects, you really have to dial in to the other things, because it's very easy. If you use the analogy of pillars in a house, if you lose all your pillars, you lose the house. If you lose one pillar, you're probably okay. Well, quickly I realized I was being a bit of a hypocrite, because as the stress increased, I had 2 kids at home. One was a newborn literally a month old when the business opened. Myself went to the wayside. My health, my fitness, I would spend 16 hours a day in a fitness facility and not touch a weight and not, barely walk through the gym floor. So from a mindset standpoint, I had to make sure I stayed up with my own health, because that was a big catalyst for my motivation, my energy to sit there and put in work every day.
Yes.
From a business standpoint, one thing I'm grateful from my own personal mindset, I'm grateful that I really kept my focus on the current members. I had great members that were loyal and were offered to pay a percentage of their membership to help us during. And that was a testament to the community we built here. Absolutely. But I never lost sight on the fact that, of course, while I did need new business, otherwise I was going to be in trouble, I had to take care of who I had in here. And I think because I had that focus first as a top priority, they helped to fuel referrals and we helped to get new business in. But I made sure not to abandon my focus on the people that were already in my doors.
Right. So focusing on your current customers and did you give them a virtual experience while you were closed?
I did. And really what that became was, instead of that becoming a revenue stream, it became a way to decrease attrition, to not lose.
Right.
We offered them enough of a value to where they did not mind paying, many of them paying full membership rates still during the months that we were closed, because they still felt like they were getting the same value in place.
Right. Building a community, there's, I would rather have 10 fans than 10,000 people that knew my name, right? Hands down, because if you can create a community around your brand, your business, or yourself, and you really have fans, then that's a completely different world in that community. They will stick by you. They will do stuff. They will buy your merchandise. They will wear your shirt. They will tell their friends, right? So it is vital, I think, for small business owners to be present in their business with their clients, especially if you have a brick and mortar where the same people are coming in the door on a regular basis. The 6,000 square foot gym near the Chicago area, the rent burden there has to be substantial, right?
Yes.
So you have to keep those memberships. Now, obviously, the government gave us some leeway on rent and all that other stuff, but you still have to deal with your landlord. You're going to live with this landlord for the foreseeable future and have a relationship with him too. So you don't want to make that too bad of a situation.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Fantastic.
And when I started this, I wanted the small group atmosphere is one that is, from a training standpoint, can still be very individual, still very high quality. What I wanted was a combination between the quality that I'd been giving as a trainer for 16 years. But when you look at what CrossFit has done really well, what CrossFit does well is they build a community. You can give them a lot of grief over injuries and what some of the things that maybe they didn't do so well at the beginning. But what they did perfectly was build a community. And that's something that I admired. And now they're, the Orange Theories of the world. And there's other big name fitness companies that are really making money. And really that's what they're making money on. The training isn't a high quality, but they have a community where people want to come back to every day. It's, for those here, I'm assuming your listeners are hopefully old enough to remember Cheers. It's the Cheers mentality.
Yes.
I think that's the best compliment I've ever received in this business. Was I had just a month ago, I had a new member, and she'd only been here a week. And as she was leaving, she turned, she goes, "Have you ever seen Cheers?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love Cheers." She goes, "I feel like I'm in Cheers right now." And she walked out, and I had the biggest smile on my face the rest of the day. I thought it was just the ultimate
awesome
compliment. Yeah.
Yes, fantastic, great work. So obviously, focusing on your members is a huge way to overcome that adversity, because it gives you something that you can control, something that you're working on. something you go, and it's revenue impacting, right? So absolutely, because they could just say, hey, I'm not going to pay, and you wouldn't even challenge that, right? So absolutely, you can't come in. I understand why you wouldn't pay me right now. So that is huge to create that community, that third home for people, right? I feel like those big box gyms like Orange Theory, and I have a lot of opinions on the franchise fitness industry. I feel like they're all just one-sided, right? They don't give a holistic approach. They have this one little narrow niche that they live in, and it's just like, you're rowing the boat, right? Just row the boat for half hour, and this really fun, energetic person's going to yell at you while you do it. We're going to play music and cool lights. So yeah, I'm familiar with all of those things, and I fall more on the side of where you're at, a holistic approach, getting to know your members, having more things that they can do wrapped around what their goals are, right? Because not everybody's goals are the same. And fitness needs to be your pace, everybody's own pace, where they're at in their journey, and then go. So I applaud you for seeing that in the fitness industry and deploying it and not falling victim to, chasing the dollar, right? Because I feel like when you chase the dollar, you lose every single time. So that's great work. Now, obviously, overcoming adversity is, a school that every business owner needs to have, right? But a business owner to really break through and do the reasons we became a business owner is to get our time back, right? And we love doing what we do, and we don't have to have a boss, right? There's a lot of reasons why you're a business owner. But, one of them is to get our time back and to really grow and to provide our family a legacy and a comfortable lifestyle and all those things. And so frequently it's not that, right? Because I feel like a lot of business owners get to a certain plateau and they just stop, right? They just, okay, this is my life now. I've gotten to here. Do you have any recommendations to, and it can go either way, right? If somebody's in that position, how do they recognize they're in that position, that they're stuck at this plateau? Or how do they break past that plateau, right? Either way, I don't care what advice you have for guys or ladies that are out there that are in their business. And how do you either recognize that you're on that plateau, or once you recognize, how do you get the energy to start building again?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hope my answer isn't boring, but it is truthful. I think at a certain point we become complacent in a certain way, and I think you start losing the day-to-day. I think people like to work on the big and the exciting and the new, and we should always be doing that. We should always be creating new. That shouldn't end anyway. But for me, it's if I lose the day-to-day, if I have my daily task list. I have a planner that my hand is on right now because I'm taking notes as we go, because I always do. And every day I go through that first. And it's, am I doing what people consider the boring stuff, the quote unquote little stuff? And I think the little stuff becomes even smaller when there isn't that sense of urgency under you. So I have to remind myself that while I want to start, what can I create new? And while I want to get excited about those things, if I let the little things go, I get myself into trouble. And it's a message I have to my staff also. And just in yesterday's staff meeting, we went over even the difference between us and the other gyms you mentioned. It's the little things that people do notice. It's, my trainer took a note during a session, and then 2 weeks later, she was able to look at that note and say, I realized you mentioned it was going to be your daughter's birthday. Happy birthday to your daughter in 2 weeks. There's these little things that mean so much.
Right.
And I want to make sure people focus on the day-to-day stuff. The big stuff is going to be there, and you're always going to get motivated and hyped for the new stuff. So don't lose sight of little stuff that got you to that point.
Absolutely. I call those tasks feeding the animals, right? If you grew up on a farm, the first thing you did in the morning is you go out and you feed the animals, right? So I call that feed the animals, and I block out the first hour of my day is feed the animals time. Like literally it says, come in the office, say hi to the staff, right? Yes. The next 20 minutes is balance the checkbook, right? It's those little tasks. And you're absolutely right. When the pressure goes away, those minute tasks get less important in your head, right? You don't see them as important, but when you're under pressure, stuff like, making sure you're talking to your staff is wildly important. You're doing that anyway, right? And then balancing the checkbook, we got enough cash to get through the next couple of days. I don't need to really sit down and do it today. Those things get less and less important. But when you're under, the crunch time, you got about, there was moments in my life that I was balancing the checkbook every hour, right? Like, oh, a new bill came in. Let's see how, when are we going to pay this? Oh, 4 months from now, we'll get this bill taken care of, right? So, but when that pressure goes away, it's really easy to kick back into cruise control. And your advice then would be make sure that those small tasks that you're doing them every day, right? And I do that by putting them on my calendar.
Yes.
Right. Literally.
Yes. And, I think they also become annoying some days, because at one point there were things you had to do. And I think some days you're like, this is not what I want to work on today. And actually, as an example, my son was sick a couple weeks ago. So one of the joys of being a business owner, my wife is not as easy to just take off of her job, but I can manipulate my schedule and I can work from home and I can do things. So I took a few days at home with my son where I just don't get as much done. So when I came back, I had a buildup of the, again, quote unquote, little things I had to do. Now, I didn't want to spend an entire workday on those things. But if I didn't catch up on those things, it would have continued to domino effect to a halt. So it's not fun some days. It's really not, especially if a day like that was not a fun work day for me. I didn't leave the gym feeling like, oh man, like I conquered something new today. But I had to get it done.
Right. And I would just recommend everybody on those tasks, right? Every single day that you're looking at them, think about, especially for the first year, 2 years, how can I make this faster? How can I streamline this? What can I take away from this process and keep it at a high level of productivity, right? And then really get that, balancing the checkbook used to take me 2 or 3 hours. Now it takes about 5 minutes, right? It's not that big of a deal. I got it down. I do it every single day. It's it's really, really fast. But I block the time out to make sure that I look at that, because if one of my shareholders calls me and I don't know a simple answer like how much revenue we had that day or that month or that week or that year, I'm an embarrassed boy. Like, I'm running home with my tail between my legs saying sorry, because I've been beat into my head. You have to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. And so I look at them every night at 10 p.m. before I go to bed, and every morning at 9 a.m. when I get into the office. So and I do it out of fear of my shareholders and stakeholders just asking me a question, right? Because I've been embarrassed too many times in my life by not knowing the numbers. So now it's like, oh, that's never going to happen again to me, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's funny you say that's actually the first thing I do every day is I pull up the sales report and I jot the numbers down on that day of the planner, so I can go back to every day and say this is what happened every single day.
Absolutely.
But Craig, so you never know when an investor is just going to be like, hey, I feel like talking today.
And knowing that number and knowing how it ebbs and flows, doesn't seem like it's that important. But we had an instance on one of our companies today, working on one of our literally today, and the company's doing pretty decent, right? No problems at all, really.
Right.
But what we notice is that they're building cron job, and for those of you that aren't in tech, a cron job is an automated job that runs on a computer. To run their billing hadn't run since November 2nd. So they're like, hey, we got a cash flow issue. What's going on? And we got in there and started looking around. I'm like, oh, well, shoot. You haven't billed any of your customers in almost 2 weeks. So we got that fixed for them. But that was a company that doesn't look at their numbers every single day, right? They don't look at that checking account every single day. So they didn't know that it happened. And those kinds of things are wildly, wildly important. So, it's embarrassing to say, hey, I have a cash flow issue when the rent's due. It's way better to find that out mid-month than it is at the end of the month. So watching out for those numbers is really, really important.
Yeah, not to mention now billing your customers 2 weeks after when they're used to getting it, and now them seeing red flags, and it's just a domino effect on the line.
It becomes abundantly obvious that nobody was checking every day.
Yeah,
right?
yes, absolutely.
Of course, you got to be more diplomatic when dealing with clients and saying, well, you didn't check it, dummy. And the answer is, okay, how do we automate that away? How do we create a job that checks this? And if it's not done, it throws up a big red light somewhere, right? Is what we do a lot, is automate and monitor. So
awesome.
Fantastic. So we got through all of the basic stuff, overcoming adversity, how do you thrive in the marketplace? Now for the fun stuff, how do you see technology changing your industry in the future? You can go out as far as you want. You can say 1 year from now, 5 years from now. We've talked about the windows and the mirrors and stuff like that. So, where do you think this industry is going in the future based on the technology that you know about today?
Yeah, I want to answer this hopefully a little differently than most will, because there's the obvious answer of the online world is going to continue to change. And the challenge in our industry is how do we not lose be in person because it's such a pivotal part of ours. And to a certain extent, people will keep coming in person because it is a person-to-person service. But I'd like to look at more. There has always been this gap between the health professionals, I mean the MDs, and fitness. And it's an ironic gap because an MD sees their patient either when there's a reason to, or when it's too late, or just at a yearly appointment. But we see people anywhere from 1 to 6 days a week. So we have the most contact with people. What we are starting to see is more technology that gives health numbers, preventative health numbers faster. So I have a actually I was taught this by my member. My member came in and said, "Hey, I found this glucose monitoring system to where I can see," and she's not diabetic, she's young, but she can see how every meal and every decision affects her system. Now, what that has done is that has motivated her from a habit change standpoint to change her portion sizes and what she eats. Because now she goes, "Oh my God, even though I didn't feel any different, this gave me a certain spike in my glucose." And there's ways you can read those numbers. That is where tech is going to go, to where we on the fitness, on the baseline of health, the preventative side of health, are going to get more tools where we can monitor numbers earlier, which means we can help people see chances and risk of disease, see red flags earlier, get earlier detection, and get them to their medical professionals before symptoms arise. And I'm very excited to see, based on the initial stuff that's already out there, where that goes. Because I think there's going to be really, really cool ways that we are going to help the medical community down the line.
Absolutely. I think that is a brilliant answer. I like that. I think customized fitness down to the DNA level is really where it's going, right? Blood type, DNA, all kinds of different factors play into your health with your micros and macros and all kinds of other stuff. And this isn't a health show, it's a business show, but absolutely. I think, the fact that there might be software later that you can literally take your 23andMe report, dump it in a local gym and say, okay, here's our recommended diet, here's our recommended workout for you, and we can help you, teach you how to do those things is there. I believe that, two of the last industries that are ever going to be brick and mortar are going to be fitness studios and restaurants, right? Or bars and restaurants, right? And one of the reasons I think fitness isn't going to go away, I think it needs to be a community thing. It's a lot of fun. But I do think that brick and mortar gyms and fitness studios and restaurants or entertainment industries need to really step up their game and start thinking about how do they attract people, and it's going to have to be something different. You're not going to get away with just throwing a bunch of equipment in a room and saying, come as you please, right? You're going to have to provide some additional value-added service or specialty service that's different than everybody else in your community, right? And different than, like, you got to be the nicest guy, you got to have the cleanest gym, you always have to keep your bathrooms clean, you have to do everything really great, and you have to be different. You have to be yourself and be authentic.
Yeah. I always have this, I don't know if you know Tom Waddle, he used to play for the Bears.
Okay.
He's on local radio.
Right.
But, he often says, you don't get credit for not doing drugs. And that always stuck with me and I like it meaning, like, having a clean gym, like this should be the automatics that you really shouldn't get credit for. And people take pride in these things. That's great. I'm glad you're taking care of your facility.
Right.
But this should be 101. Like, health and hygiene in your facility should be just something that everybody does.
Right.
It's like being polite. People are getting credit now for being polite. Well, I think everyone should just be polite. And, we use the term work another day as a negative here. That's not what you come here for. You don't come here for, anyone can come in here and say, here's something that makes you feel good now. You're going to sweat now, you'll be sore tomorrow. That can all go virtual permanently. And in my mind, I don't care. Because you can have that. Because to your point, what will be different would be the customized programming and then the technology that will, to your point earlier, streamline some of the habit, the nutrition, the sleep side of the equation. That just makes those conversations so much easier for us on the training side.
Right. And this, in boxing, we use the phrase all the time, steel sharpens steel. And you can use that phrase in anything in business. And if you're using fitness on a screen, then you're only going to be as fit as that screen allows you to be. You don't have somebody really right there with you, pushing you, motivating you, or in boxing, somebody right there as good or you, they're better than you, that's really making you perform, right? The same thing in business. If you don't have any competition, then you're kind of just, you're not really creating anything great. You're just going through the motions, right? So competition is what makes great stuff, right? And then inside a world of fitness where a bunch of people are in a gym, you can make it as inclusive as you can, but there's still a level of competition in there. Oh, they're pushing a little harder. That means I'm going to push a little harder, right? And you get that vibe going. I don't think you can recreate that. You might be able to recreate that in virtual reality. I don't know yet, but you can't recreate that on a screen. It's just not. It's not there today, right?
I agree.
Let's go. You have one sense, right? And today, or two senses: your eyes and your ears. But when you're in the gym, you've got all the senses, right? You've got your sweat, your heartbeat, and the smell, and everything's there. So I don't think they're going to go away, brick and mortar. I don't have a great foresight for them with VR. I think we're going to do a big dip again at some point, but then I think the world will see the need for it and come back out of their basements with their headsets off.
Yeah, and I think our corner of it is the more sustainable part. I think the open access gyms are the ones that people really need the accountability. I think those are the ones that will go through bigger ebbs and flows.
Right. They're the first to go, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And to be credit, I learned from a guy before the pandemic who has been saying this now for close to a decade. The sweet spot was the 6,000 to 10,000 square foot space. That could do more unique things at a higher price point.
Right.
Small group training, but could touch people differently and could form that community more distinctly. But it was going to be the 12 to 25,000 in bigger spaces that long term we're going to struggle. And he's, pandemic or not, he's it looks like he might have been in the know.
Yeah, and I would even go smaller. I would say the 1,500 square foot to the 7,000 square foot, the 10,000 square foot is what's going to be really successful. And I think that 1,500 micro niche fitness is going to be huge for a lot of business owners and coaches, right? That's going to be an owner operated. You got a job, you're there, you're having a great time, you're having a good living, right? But you're working in your gym every day. That 5,000 and 6,000 square foot gym is a gym a business owner could open, and I don't think he can be owner absent, but he can be, very part time, right, at that kind of facility. So, and still be wildly profitable and create a community and all those other things. But once you're over 10,000 square feet, community kind of goes away.
It does. Right? It's different. It's definitely different.
So, fantastic. Before we get going, do you have anything any tips or tricks, anything you want to leave with the audience today?
Focus on your health. No matter what business you are in, focus on your health. I always look back to a Kevin Hart conversation before he was big and famous. He was famous, but not this famous, where he talks about how the fact that he didn't need to be healthy to be a good comedian. No one cared if he was a good, but he was at his best when he worked out and focused on his nutrition and got his sleep. And I think these are baseline habits that I don't care what the goal is. If you're a musician or you're a business owner, it doesn't matter. We are at our best if our body's at its best because we only have one. So focus on your health, and everything else becomes just a little bit easier.
And if you watch Clicks and Bricks a lot, you'll notice that we do have a lot of gym owners on the show. One of the reasons is I'm pretty passionate about the fitness world. I'm really passionate about business too, but I think it is vital for business owners to get ahead of the health game because I'm a living example of how bad not taking care of yourself can be in business. It's so easy to put yourself last when you own a business or operate a business, and you'll destroy your whole company. If you're not taking care of yourself, the entire company's in jeopardy. So the fitness around your business, if you're not fit, your business won't be fit either. And you can get away with it for a long time not doing it, but eventually the shit's going to catch up with you, and you're going to have big meetings planned, and you're not going to make it because you're in the hospital, right? And it's just not a good place to be. And unfortunately, they kind of hit in lockstep together. You start really getting successful in your late 30s, early 40s, and that's when those medical problems really start to buckle in if you haven't been taking care of yourself earlier. So I talk to so many young entrepreneurs and business owners that are just treating their bodies like shit, not taking care of themselves. And I tell them, And I'm starting to tell them with a lot of vigor, like, dude, you got to get your shit together, or you're like, what are you doing? Like, you're running this business, and I wish I had somebody that slapped me around more when I was younger, and said, hey, you got to do this right, or you're gonna you keep saying you want to own this business and run this business and make it great, but if you're dead, it's nothing.
Yep.
Right.
And I think that goes for being a family man as well. I think I'm not as good of a husband or a father if I'm not focusing on myself and my health as well. So
absolutely. Thank you, Mike, for your time today. Very much appreciated. I had a blast talking with you, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Ken, thank you very much.
No problem at all. That's it for the show today, folks. Again, my name is Ken. If you want to join my text line community, 314-370-2871. Just say hi or ask me any questions about business or technology. And that's it for today. Get to work.